Hey everyone, this is Steven. You're listening to the first episode of the Zero Knowledge podcast. Now, the main premise of the show is that I have no idea what I'm talking about, and there are kind of two parts to that. So number one, I don't claim to be an expert on these topics. They're just things that interest me. Usually going to be fairly new to me, stuff that I've just learned that I want to do a podcast on, put out there. And number two, I'm not quite sure what the topics are going to be. So it could be programming, it could be guitar, it could be coffee, who knows. So with that said, let's get started. In this episode, I wanted to show you some work I've been doing with Phoenix channels and React. Now, in order to do that, we're just going to take a look at some application code for a side project I'm working on, and hopefully you learn something. So we're going to start off in the token socket of our Phoenix application. Now, the socket is something that you have to open a connection to on the client before you can join any channels. So in here, we have a list of our channels that you can join on this socket. So it matches up a path with a server-side implementation of the channel. Below that, we list whatever transports we want to support. So I have WebSockets. There's also a connect method where you can do any sort of authentication you want to do and add information to the socket that you can access within the channels. So on mine, I take in a token if they provide one, and I use a library for Elixir called Guardian to check the token to make sure it's a valid JSON web token. If it is, I'll return the socket with the information that came from the token, and if it's not, right now I just have it returning the socket without that information. In Elixir, there's a cool feature called pattern matching. So you'll notice I actually have two different connect methods. One of them accepts a token, and then one of them is just the fallback if they don't provide the token. So let's move on to the client-side code. It actually looks kind of similar to what was in our token socket. We have a list of our channel paths, and we map those to client-side implementations of the channel. So you'll notice actually that all three of these use the resource channel, which I'll show you in a second here. But before we do that, let's take a look at what a channel looks like on the server. So we have our join method, which takes in a path for the channel. In here, we could also do some sort of authentication or whatever we really want to do. In this case, I'm just returning OK in the socket. We can also handle different messages from the client in our channel. So in this one, I'm just handling the submitted message. And this one takes in an email. So this is the temporary password channel. And what we want to do here is take in an email address and try to create a temporary password. And if it comes back with an error, which is usually that it's not a valid email address, we'll just return an error to the client. And if it worked, then we're going to return back the email address that a temporary password was created for. So let's take a look at what it looks like on the client now. So this is our resource channel, and it's very similar to a Redux module. So we have our initial state, a reducer, which takes in a state and an action and returns a new state. We have some actions down here. So you'll notice that this submit action broadcasts a submitted event with whatever payload it was passed. And that's the same submitted event that our temporary password channel handles. There's also a change event or a change action in here, which emits a changed action or event. I'm not really sure what I'm calling them. This one only broadcasts it locally, though, so this won't get passed to the server-side channel, but it will get reduced in our reducer. And what this one does is it just updates the form value in our state. There's also selectors, which in this case, we just have one for getting a form value. And the reason I added this is because I wanted an easy method to call that could return a fallback value just in case the form value wasn't set yet. So let's take a look at what this looks like in our React components. So here we have the sign-in page, and you'll notice this redirect on login component that I'm calling. So I'm basically saying redirect on login to the index page. So let's take a look at what that component looks like. In here, we're using the channel component, and we're giving it a path, which is our token channel. And then this is using a function as a child. So whenever our channel state updates, it will re-render the component and pass it basically everything that's in this resource channel. So it'll pass it the state, the actions, which are bound to that channel, and the same thing with the selectors. So in this case, we just need to take the resource from that channel and check to see if it has a user ID value. And if there is, then we're going to redirect to wherever, to whatever location was passed in the props. And if there isn't, then we're just going to render whatever the children are. And so let's take a look at a little bit more involved of a component. So let's see. This is our sign-in form. Now this one uses two different channels. So it uses the token channel and it uses the temporary password channel. And I'll just kind of show you this. I don't want to go step by step through everything. Up here I have just a list of functions to check different things. So like if it's an invalid email, if there's an invalid password, if either of the channels are submitting, stuff like that. Down here I have a couple of input components and then some buttons. Now let's take a look at how this actually works. I'm going to take you over to the sign-in page. And I guess before we get into that, I got to give a quick shout out to Wiz Khalifa and his song City View for helping me come up with the copy at the top of the page. How this sign-in form works is you can use it whether you have an account or not. And if you don't have an account with a password, you can just enter in your email and then click this Send Temporary Password button, and it'll send you a temporary password that you can log in with. So the thinking there was to get email confirmation out of the way. So once they log in, they can get going right away. So I'm going to type in my email right here. And then once I finish entering my email, you'll notice this button is now clickable. So I'll click that, and it just sent an email to my email address. So I'm going to copy this temporary password, paste it in the password field, and then click sign in. And when I click sign in, this is going to submit my login information to the token channel. And once the token channel gets that and it works, it's going to send back an OK message with the token resource. And that token resource includes a user ID on it. So you'll notice up here, once I click submit, my avatar and email address are going to show. And that redirect on login component is also checking the user ID of the token channel. And so it's going to redirect me to the index page. That's all I've got for this episode. At some point, I'll throw together a website at zkp.fm. So maybe that will be up by the time you watch this, maybe not. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter or GitHub at Sauceman. And if you're interested in the side project I'm working on, you can read about it at stacked.com. That's stackd.com. And last but not least, my day job is at Dwala. So if you ever need an API for moving money between bank accounts, you should definitely check us out. Thanks for watching the first episode. I hope it wasn't too bad.